Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode here of the Kickpod podcast, the podcast dojo of inspirational fit or dojo talk, or should I say martial arts talk. I am your host, your sensei, TJ Williams, give you the insider of my martial arts journey, discussing and analyzing martial arts based subjects, and highlighting martial artists that are around the world, past, present, and future. All right. So before I kind of get on to my episode, just for people that just tuned in this podcast. This is a pre-recorded episode. So what I talk about in this episode is either done past or it's coming up. So which brings me to what I want to talk about. A tragic situation that happened on May 14th in my area. So if you're from the Western New York area, you probably heard about this. Of course, the whole world has heard about this because it's been trending. Of course, the mass shooting at the supermarket at Buffalo this past weekend. And 10 people lost their lives due to that tragedy. And of course, I know it affects a lot of people. And of course, the only thing I can say is I can send my prayers out to the families that of the victims. And all I can say this is all about this podcast. We're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about inspirational martial arts talk, what martial arts can do for you. But nevertheless, we're here to stay positive. That's the only one thing we can do is just stay together and stay positive. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest coming from Colonial Heights, Virginia. He's the owner and head instructor of Kickstars Martial Arts School. And of course, I've known him for a while because I competing. So he's a tremendous martial artist. And I'd like to introduce everybody to Ewell Carter that decided to come up on my show to tell his journey, probably from the beginning to all the way to the end. So this might go an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours. So I'm gonna go for 2 hours. All right. So let me introduce you to Ewell Carter. How we doing, Ewell?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. Definitely I'm almost to episode 100 with this show. So I'm almost there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations.
Yeah. All right, so just to give us a brief of what you do currently. So I know you own a school, and how's that going for you?
We're doing great, man. We're so blessed. We're so blessed. I've been doing it full time now for 6 years. We've been open for 10 years, but full time, it's a whole different ball game when you're full time. So yes, great, dude. We're very blessed.
I know it's pretty much tough for you during the pandemic, like 2 years ago, and you had to close down.
But we persevered, dude. We never gave up. That's what black belt means.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when I have to do the of course the black belt test coming up this weekend. We have 5 black people going for black belt first degree. Yeah, so I'm gonna be watching really closely because I'm gonna be grading the whole test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta earn it, man. You gotta earn it.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna get to that later. But we're going to go right to the beginning. We're going to go back to the time machine. We're going to take things back before martial arts was your thing. So how would you describe yourself before martial arts?
Well, I was a very active kid. I'm actually from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So I was born out there, and we lived on a chicken farm. We had a chicken farm. We call it a chicken ranch. But we didn't raise cows; we raised chickens.
Oh wow!
And I was, I will say, ever since I was a little kid, before martial arts, I was just a believer. Like, I had a good imagination, and I had this idea that anything was possible. And I think a lot of that I really credit to my mom, because my mom was a big book lover, and reading books or listening to audiobooks really makes you use your imagination. So I was very creative for sure, and we had to work hard. So like hard work was just something we did. But yeah, I would say very good imagination, and I was confident, but I didn't lack confidence. I just didn't know how to use confidence.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe when you have new students, like, they have that confidence, but you don't know how to use it properly. So of course, us instructors there, it just they just give us tips of different ways we can build that confidence or release it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, man. It's just now that I look back and think about things like that, it's a different perspective on everything. Because like I always I will say too, before martial arts, I was just always that believer in that how do you say, like the Hail Mary concept. You have that one shot, you're the guy, you got 10 seconds left in the clock. And growing up too, since we lived out, we were about an hour outside of Cheyenne, we didn't have a lot of friends to play with. So I played a lot of the times just by myself, man, growing up. And I remember back then just, I always played a lot of whatever I was playing. It was always that 10 seconds down, that pressure, that concept of pressure and having to deal with that pressure, and almost like you're the hero, but you get a lot of that from books and reading books. And I was a big Hardy Boy fan growing up. So yeah, man, I still got all the books, man. I'm never going to get rid of this.
Yeah, you definitely have the benefit of the doubt. You live on a chicken farm. I mean, of course, you have to worry about going to the store and buying eggs. I mean,
no, never had a white egg until we moved back here to Virginia. Always brown eggs. Yeah.
Brown. Yeah. So you just raised chickens. You just didn't raise anything else.
Yeah, we had a garden. Our garden was probably 2 acres big. It was huge, and I mean that's how we lived out there. A lot of the people out there were hunters. They were into that. And it was a very serious country out there because, like you can die in the wilderness. People don't realize how serious it is. They think it's a joke. And I did that, and I was involved in a 4-H program. So I learned a lot about like animals and tracking animals and what types of tracks. Man, I couldn't tell you what it is now, but back then, like I knew my stuff, but yeah, just I was very active, man. I mean, honestly, our punishment growing up was we weren't allowed to go outside.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. So I was a very active kid, and I loved I love people. Like I was I was more of an introvert, but I wanted to be nice to everybody. And that is a good thing. And I tell people what I try to teach kids. It's good to be nice to people. You just have to learn that not everybody is nice.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But you can't allow people to bully you. That was actually probably my problem before martial arts. That was my problem was I got bullied a lot because I was nice to everybody, and just you want to be kind to people. That's how I was raised. And I will say my parents raised me too at that time to not to get into fights, and if somebody did pick on you, not to do anything. Because, my mom was just like, I don't want you to get in fights. That's kind of how it was. And yeah, different concept, man.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much can relate to that. I mean, I've lived in a different type of environment because there's always fights happening in my neighborhood. And, there's going to be times where if I'm the target, I have to learn how to protect myself. I mean, I'm not looking to be a monster. I mean,
Right.
you got a lot of those people that try to prove how tough they are, and they pick a fight with anybody. But yet, I'm like you said, it's always best to be nice to people. If I'm nice to you, I mean, that's the same. I don't need you to be the same way back. It's a two-way street.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey. All right. So can you think of one event that got you interested in martial arts?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I got bullied, and this is a funny story. There were these boys at my church, man, at church, and they would pick on me at church. And after church, you go outside with the kids and play. And there were 3 of them, and 2 of them were older than me, and one of them was younger. I think he was 2 years younger than me. And I remember because I was right around 7. And my mom and dad were actually sitting in the car that night, and they came outside and they beat me up. I mean, right there, my mom and dad sat there and watched it. And like I said, my parents are old school too. They're kind of like, well, you got to learn how to fight your own battles sometime, And like my mom and dad were like, we'll step in if it gets too far. But I will say, like, back then they just kind of punched you, threw you around. If you fell to the ground, they left you alone. Like nowadays, you fall to the ground, you're fighting for your life. You know, it was a different type of world. So anyways, they beat me up, and I remember getting up, and so my mom and dad were both sitting in the car, and they kind of felt guilty because they were the ones who told me not to fight back. And so my mom was like, I'm sitting there, and my son's a victim because I told him not to fight back. So she actually was reading in the newspaper looking for some stuff and came across this ad for a self-defense class. And there was this guy, he was teaching a self-defense class at the community college. And so she signed me up for that self-defense class. And I had no clue. I mean, like, I didn't know anything. They never said anything to me about that event until years later. And then, so I remember one Saturday morning, she said, all right, get up, I'm taking you somewhere. And we went to that college, dude. And she said, I'm signing you up for a self-defense class. I said, what's self-defense? Because I don't know. I don't really know anything. And the guy came in there and he said, I'm going to teach you some karate. And I said, oh, cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So that event is really what it set me up for success in the where I'm at today. If it hadn't have been for those guys beating me up, man, I would have never taken that first karate class.
Yeah. I mean, but would you say that was your push? Usually people have a push or an envy that really gets them started. Like, no, for me, I had an envy and yet a push. I grew up watching like Bruce Lee and all these other martial arts movies that I was so really inspired by. And of course, I was a subject of bullying. And you always got those people that just stand around and watch it happen. We try to prevent that. If you see a problem, you don't stand around and see it happen. You just got to go find some help or stop the person. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, man, I remember one of the times too back then. I remember this guy because he was like 19 or 20, man, and I was right at the same. It was right in the same time frame because I had just started karate, and my parents told me too. They said, "Don't tell anybody you're doing karate," And my instructor was aware of the situation too, and so he was kind of like, you don't want to go around and tell people this. He's like, because you're just starting and you're not ready yet, know. But I remember this guy. He was probably 19, 20, and I'll never forget, man. He was chasing me, and he like body slammed me. I was like 7, 8 years old, man, and I'll never forget how hard I hit the ground, dude. Oof. And I just remember after that, I was like, dude, I will never allow somebody to touch me like that again. Yeah. Never. I don't care about to rip your throat out. Like, like that's your, like, just never, ever. I wish you'd come body slam me now, bro. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
I mean, at least if you try, I'll back you up. Of course, I do pro wrestling, so I put in one of my finishers.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing we talk about in self-defense. I mean, one thing, you don't want anybody to make contact. I mean, if they get close, it's gonna come to physical contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always best to keep your hands up, not as a fight or to put your dukes up. Just you're not a threat. Hands up.
I don't want no trouble, man. I don't want no trouble. I tell people at the end of the day, your job is to be able to go home and walk through your front door.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're going to stop you from doing that, that's when you have a problem.
Yeah. All right. So can you think of like your first memory of your first lesson, or your memory of your first lesson?
Yeah, I remember it like perfectly, dude, because it's funny. It's really funny. The guy that was teaching, and to this day, I still can't remember his name because we called him Sensei. That was just it. And I've actually done some research and really tried to look up who was teaching at the community college, man, because I would love to get in touch with that guy and be like, dude, you're the reason I'm where I'm at today. That impact. So it's on my list, man. We're working on it. But I remember he was a bigger guy. He was probably like 6 foot, and he was a 240. He was solid. He was a big guy. And so I remember we were in the wrestling gym at the college, and he had everybody line up, and he was like, all right, we're going to learn horse stance. And so we were in horse stance, and it was just some basic self-defense. We did like our punches, and then he said, all right, you're going to do a chop and then punch, chop, punch. And I remember him explaining that, like, if somebody punches at you, you chop their wrist and you hit them with a reverse punch. And so because the style out there, what I started in out there was it was like an Ed Parker Kempo karate. And that's very big out there. It's huge, super huge. And then there was another guy in town that taught Shotokan karate, but his was more of an Ed Parker Kempo karate guy. And so I remember he had us doing like front kicks too. And this dude jumps up and does this like jump front kick. And it was just amazing, I'm 8 years old. And this guy's 240 pounds. He was a big guy. Just what, boom, snap kick. And he's like, one day you guys will be able to do that, but we got to learn how to do it on the ground. So, I'm all pumped. I'm like, man, yeah. So what's so funny about that first class was he was teaching us how to do the front kick and kick like the inside of the thigh. So I thought he meant the groin. Bro, I thought he meant the groin, dude. So he would walk in the room and all the students would, like, we're in our horse stance and we'd do our front kick from our horse stance and, kick the inside of the thigh, kick the inside. He comes to me, bro. He said, all right, ready, set, go. Bro, I hauled off and I punt kicked him right in the jewels, man.
Ooh.
And I'll never forget him going, that was it, dude. That was it. He said, inside of the leg, man. Inside of the Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. That was my first class, dude. I kicked my instructor in the groin. I was one of those videos you see go viral.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's why I wear cups. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, especially when I'm sparring with my students, I always wear my cup.
Yes.
You never know
I'm sure he had one on because I'm telling you, man, I rocked it. So he had to. Man, he was like, that's awesome. Yep. So I've never forgotten my first class ever.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me. I mean, I always remember I started my first class like during wintertime, and I did it with a cold. I did my first class. I still had a cold when I was getting over it. But I can still remember my first instructor. As a matter of fact, my first instructor still teach. And the thing is, I always make fun of him because he won't test for his next rank. He's still first degree, and I'm here a fourth degree. So I mean, I encourage him to actually test, but he has his family and all that stuff in his house. But I can't force it. And plus his body's giving up on him, so I don't want to push it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So your mindset after that first class, like, what were you thinking about doing next?
I was ready to take on the world, man. I was ready to take on the world. I just remember thinking to myself that the next time these guys try to beat me up, then I'm gonna chop the wrist and punch them in the face, because I felt like I had some power, and what's crazy is I tell people, like, after that happened, those guys came up to beat me up, man. And they beat me up again. But this time I was trying to fight back. They still beat me up, but I was trying. And, like I said, one class isn't going to get you anywhere. But that confidence, that little ounce of confidence from that class of just believing that I could do something, they couldn't take advantage of me. Man, I mean, they could beat me up all day, but I was a believer. I believed in myself, and I just kept going back. I'll never forget. Like, I have once I get on something, man, I'm stuck to it, And I would go home and do the stretches he showed us, and everything. And we didn't have TV growing up where we lived at, and so like I didn't know anything about like Chuck Norris. I didn't know anything, about Bruce Lee or anything. But we had a library, and I started looking at these like self-defense books and all this cool stuff. And I'm going to tell you what, after that first class, dude, I was hooked. And every Saturday I went, I wanted to get better. I remember the first time I sparred too. Cause like, I'm probably one of those students that you have come on the floor and you're like, oh my God. Cause we all have one. You're like, what are they going to break today? You know what I mean? And I'll never forget the first time I sparred, man. I sparred this girl and he said, go. And I just hauled off and I punched her right in the nose. Blood was everywhere. And he was standing there and he was like, oh God. And you know, like us now as instructors, we have it happen. You're like, oh crap, mom's watching. You know what I mean? Because you have, oh man, come on, Billy. Again. And I just remember looking at my instructor and I said, well, you're the one who told us to keep our hands up. And he looked at me and he laughed so hard. He said, Ewell, I don't have a comeback or something like that. He wasn't mad at me, but dude, I was sold. I went home and practiced and I was very dedicated to it. We moved back to Virginia and I was about 10. So I'd been doing it for about 2 years. And then I actually ended up starting over here in a Korean system, like a Mudokwon Taekwondo Hapkido system. I started over and I'm gonna tell you what, like my instructor here, I won the lottery. Like he was awesome, man. Great traditional foundation, but very realistic and blessed me. He blessed me. He was just a good example and he really cared. And I got to the place where I was so addicted to it. Like he just gave me a key to the karate school. And I ended up working for him, and I ran his karate school until I was about 18, man.
Yeah. So would you say that you would call him your karate father, pretty much? Or your karate?
Yeah, definitely. He is family for sure. Him and his son. Yeah, his son was a big impact because we would do a lot of like summer camps or we would go teach at schools. And I was actually homeschooled. So, I'd get my work done. I could go to a karate school and train. And like I tell people, like they were a great traditional foundation, man. They were awesome. Like on the competitive side, they didn't really have that know-how on stuff, but they set me up for success. I mean, they gave me the wheels, the tires. I was ready to go. All that had to happen for me was me to get to the person that could add the extra stuff, So yeah, Master Ron, his name is Master Ron, and he's from Colonial Heights. And like I said, I have a great relationship with him, and I'm blessed, man. And his wife too. Like his wife, she's I want to say she's a 5th degree black belt, and she really helped my confidence, man. She helped my confidence. She didn't take any junk from anybody. And if you questioned her, you said, oh, I don't think you can do that. Her attitude was, watch me, man, watch me. And so I grew up around that. And that was my attitude too. If you told me I couldn't do something, I was like, okay, bro, have fun watching me succeed,
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with me and Mr. Presti. I mean, I call him my karate pops. And, I feel like he just basically raised me. I built my confidence to, other than being a good martial artist, but also being an instructor. Being an instructor wasn't my first pick, but after getting used to it and doing other stuff, and I build that confidence to just like go in there and teach. And it's not all about. How would you describe yourself as an instructor? Would you say you're technical, like you're almost like a technician? What would you say that's how you describe yourself?
Yeah, I believe in technique. And I've when you're an instructor too, like you grow, right? You should, because like one way is not always going to work because there's 1,000 different ways to beat that. Like that's why I love Bruce Lee. Like I always tell people, I was like, Bruce Lee was ahead of his time, majorly. Like people can criticize him all they want, but the dude was a genius. And but yeah, I like technique, and I'm a big believer in repetition. I mean, repetition, correct repetition is what makes you good. Like you can, Bruce Lee said it. Guy who knows 10,000 techniques but only practices it one time is worthless. But the guy who practices that one technique 10,000 times, he's the master of it, you know. And I would say technical, and I try to be compassionate. That's where I'm at as an instructor, because when I first opened my school, man, I was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna have the best students in the world, right? So to get a yellow belt, you had to know like 1,000 things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And if I could go back, I would do what I'm doing now, man. To get your yellow belt, you need to know your basic stances. You need to know, a couple basic techniques, know your student creed, know your horse stance, because it's a success rating, because that's what I had to learn to get my yellow belt, and you have to, I always tell people this: if you want to be a good instructor, cool, man, do that. Make them learn all these techniques and make them wait forever to get their yellow belt. I mean, the ones that stick with you will be good, but you won't have a lot of them. But if you want to be a great instructor, make things attainable. Make things attainable, because like the truth is, I mean, if it took us a year to get a yellow belt, chances are we probably wouldn't have stayed. Yeah. And everybody, I do believe too that if you have a front kick, you should have 5 or 6 ways to teach that front kick, because everybody learns differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what and I will say I got that from my instructor, Master Ron, because his son, his youngest son at the time was special needs.
Yep. And
growing up with that, and we love Chase. Chase is awesome. We love him to death. But growing up with that was, I saw this special needs boy learn karate. But you had to teach him differently than the kid who was your all-star. But then you had this kid come in who was wimpy and little, no confidence. You had to teach him different. And you just had to find the way that worked for him.
Yeah, I can relate. So like, of course, when I talk about our black belt test coming up, we have, of course, one red belt that's special needs. And of course, he built himself to be ready for this test. And I'm looking forward to this, because we pretty much been on him since he started. And I have every confidence. And let's just say his techniques, I feel like if he was in a fight, I mean, he could knock somebody out. I mean,
we have students, man, that have autism. And I tell people they're better students than the people without autism. Their technique's better. They listen. They work harder. Yeah, they're more focused. And I tell people all the time, they're actually smarter than us, man. They're smarter than us. Yeah, I love them. Yeah, martial arts is for everybody. I don't care who you are. It's for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like it's definitely for everybody. I can see that. I mean, and when you talk about teaching different like ways of doing a front kick, like how I say it, like for a thrusting front kick, I say like you're kicking a door open.
Yep.
Or like you're stomping on a bug.
Yep. Yeah, and I think too, the other thing is, as an instructor, to be a great instructor, you got to take your ego out of it, man. Like the ego is it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I believe in. I mean, and I say that because of my experience and my mistakes, my personal mistakes. If I hadn't had such a big ego when I first opened, I wonder how many of those white belts would have actually got their yellow belt instead of quitting.
Yep.
And I sometimes I feel guilty, man, because I'm like, man, dude, like it was so tough back then. Like, dude, did I impact their life in a negative way?
Yeah.
And honestly, man, like that's something that I had to I pray about. I'm like, God, forgive me. So like now as an instructor, it's like, all right, let's make things attainable for people in the beginning. It gets tougher later, but you got a kid come in, they need to earn their yellow belt. They need to know that they can. There's still a requirement, but they need to know that they can.
Yeah, man, I can definitely relate to that. Definitely a lot of stupid students that they can't do their best all the time, but they try. And even if you do it against a bag, I mean, you see how powerful they get the technique. It's not as powerful, but they actually get the technique.
Right.
All right. So speaking of the black belts, can you describe your first degree black belt test?
Yeah. I I think everybody, the belt right before black belt, you're ready because you know, once you become a black belt, you're part of that brotherhood. You know, you're there. You've done it. And like I said, I was probably a green belt, and that was when my instructor basically like took me under his wing. I was at the karate school. I was at the karate school more than the current black belts that were there, you know? And so I got to this place where I was actually better than the black belts, you know, except for like my instructor and his son. And, but I wasn't a black belt, you know, that was the thing. I wasn't a black belt. And there was this attitude from the black belts. They were welcoming, but it was also this, hey man, you're not black belt yet, you know? So like, yeah, you might be able to kick me and beat me, you know, or whatever at this farm, but you're not a black belt. So you still got to bow to me, bro, you know? So I remember my black belt test, and I was 15 when I got my black belt. So, you know, it took me about 7 years because I started martial arts when I was 8. And I tell people like my teenage years, man, I was disciplined. I had extreme discipline. I woke up every day at 5 a.m. And I remember my mom had a treadmill, and I would walk like on an incline on like 4.5 speed for an hour every day. I was super disciplined because at that time I'd started watching a lot of karate stuff, and you know, you see that stuff, man. I was a big Walker Texas Ranger fan. Like, he's the man. Chuck's the man. Chuck was my hero.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I had to get up. If I'm going to be like Chuck, what would Chuck do? You know? And I got up every day, and I would walk, and I stretched every single day for an hour. I was super disciplined. And I gave up soda when I was 15. I didn't have another soda again, dude. Gave it up. And I would drink a gallon of water every day. And so, again, these were things that at that time I had come to the knowledge of being like the best. You do these things if you're the best, or if you want to be the best. And so on my black belt test, my instructor has us do this run. It's called the black belt run. And it's kind of like you have to complete it. It's like your rite of passage, right? So I had never really ran before. Like I played football with some friends and stuff, but I never ran ever. But I walked every day for an hour. And so on my black belt test, when I did this run, man, I'm gonna tell you what, it destroyed me.
Ooh.
It destroyed me. And there was this guy there. I can't remember his name, but I see him every once in a while. He was a retired like drill sergeant or something. And he was the other black belts would come, and you had to do this run. And I remember on the first lap I ran, then the second lap you would run, and then you had to stop and do like 100 squats, then 100 push-ups at these little designated stations. And then the third lap, you just had to run full out. You had to get it done at a certain time that had to be done. And I remember on the last lap, man, like that was the wall. That was when I hit that wall. And I was like, man, I can't do this. Can't do this, man. I'm not going to pass my black belt test, you know? Because like never, you know, because I didn't run. So I hadn't, like, I thought I had prepared, but it wasn't, I wasn't unprepared. And so that old man was behind me, and I'll never forget, because we would go eat breakfast after the run. And he said, you will just start thinking about that bacon. And I said, bacon? He goes, yeah, man. He said, just keep running. He goes, every step you take, you get a little closer to that bacon. And I was like, man, I like bacon. And I remember, man, I was running, and then the end of it, there's this real tall hill. It's probably about 40 yards up, right? And you have to sprint that hill, and you can't stop. You stop, you fail. Just is what it is. And I remember taking off. I get to the top, and my instructor just looks at me and goes, good job, man. You did it. And I go, ugh. And I turn over. I just barf everywhere on the ground, man. And I was like, after that point, I like had my shirt over my head. I was like, you know, because you know how you feel after you barf. I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. And so then we went back to the karate school for my black belt test. And we had to do breaks. We had to break boards and stuff. And my instructor said, Ewell, I have a surprise for you today. And I was like, yes, sir. Because, you know, when you're an instructor and you say you have a surprise, it's not always a good thing, right? And he said, I want all your breaks to be jumping breaks.
Oh.
Man. So and then we did like one steps, like self-defense one step
Yep.
stuff, and then he said, I want all your one steps anywhere there's a kick in it, like if it's a sliding side kick or back kick, or they got to all be jump kicks, man. Whatever kick it is, it's got to be a jump kick. And it was good because like it was tough, but like he knew I had the ability to do all this amazing stuff. And that day he really pushed me. And what was great is all that training I had been doing before, because I put in work. That day, the day where I thought I was wiped, he pulled out another level of greatness that was inside of me that I had never used before. Like doing those jump kicks, man. Who would have thought, like after doing that run and all this stuff breaks, that you would be able to do that? And he knew that I could. I didn't know that I could. And I remember when I got that black belt around my waist, never looked back. I said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
I could, well, what you were talking about kind of sound like my 4th degree test. I can see like black belt test is based on endurance, like how much you can take or how much you can do if you're tired.
Right.
Yeah. I can remember my 4th degree tests. I mean, of course, before we got into college, we were doing all these techniques, and yet there was 2 people that were going for the 3rd, but I was going for my 4th. But I got the worst of it because the testing board was like adding on all this stuff that wasn't even on my test. I mean, I was prepared for the test, but yet on the other side of the coin, they see if I'm prepared for other stuff.
Right.
Like, they had me do a kata that wasn't even on the test, but I did it anyway. But because I was prepared, because I was learning how to do that kata.
Right.
And it was amazing. And I was like you said, I didn't barf, but I was like almost passed out. I was getting ready to barf, but a good thing I took something to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. We learn lessons though from those experiences.
Yeah. It's something that we can tell our students. Like we've been to war, so of course, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I tell students, hey man, listen to your coaches, listen to your instructors. There's a lot of wisdom behind that.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So let's get to like when you started competing. Like,
yeah. Well, my first tournament I went to, I was an orange belt. And I had an event out of town, and I did everything I could do to get back in time for the tournament. And because I was 12 at the time, and I ended up missing that tournament. I didn't going to compete, and I had trained so hard for it, and I was like devastated. So after that, I because I did Taekwondo, I did a couple of the WTF, World Taekwondo Federation's tournaments, and I was actually good. I was pretty good. I won a few medals. I actually won a first place at that time. But like as far as the karate tournaments went to, that was really the thing. That was where you wanted to be there, and those were the ones with the trophies. Like you want to win the trophy, and I was awful. I was awful, dude. I lost so much, and I was an orange belt when I first started. And so we went orange, second class orange, blue second, green, black, red, purple. So 9 belts later, which was about 3.5 years later, I won my first trophy. And I mean, I was consistent, man. I was going every 2 months to a karate tournament, every 3 months. And it was a 4th place trophy. And I still have that trophy to this day. It means something,
Yeah.
And I got a 4th place, and then I got a 3rd place actually that day. And I'm gonna tell you what, my mom took me. I had a grass cutting business because like I paid for my own karate growing up, and I paid for my tournaments. Like it's just how it was. It was, you want to do something, you got to earn it. So not just through karate, like I earned my karate. I tell people like I earned that karate. But I would lose and get in the car, and my mom was just probably my greatest supporter at that time, because she always asked me, she's like, what do you think you could have done better? And she always wanted to find the solution to the problem. Let's find the solution. Yeah, maybe you had a bad judge that day, because there were, but like, what could you have done better to turn that bad judge into a good judge? because there's always something we can do.
Yep.
And so at that time, that's how I thought. And then I got to this place. I was okay the next year. I was a brown belt, and I won a first place trophy. My first place was actually in weapons, and then I was just okay. But when I got my black belt, that was when like I started to blossom. And I was not a good competitor until after I got my black belt. And then I'll never forget. It was March of 2009. I went to this karate tournament and I won traditional forms, first place as a black belt. Then I turned around and won the whole sparring division, right?
Mm.
And both of them, well, because we were Korean stylists, and where we're at, like some people are kind of like prejudiced towards Korean stylists, because it's a big karate Okinawan area up here, and all the judges were Okinawan Kempo guys. And man, I won forms, and like even me and my mom, we're just standing there, what? Because that doesn't happen here. And the guy came up to me, he goes, man, you were good. I was like, oh my gosh, like. And then when the fighting came, there was this sport karate guy, because I wasn't in sport karate at that time. I'm still kind of new, and I didn't really know a lot about the sport karate circuit. And this guy was supposed to be this legend. And so I ended up fighting up to first and second place, and I had to fight him. And I'll never forget it, man. I hit him with a back fist, like right at the end of the match, because it was like tied. And I just took that chance. I was like, dude, I have to hit him, man. And I took this chance, hit him with a back fist, and I won first place. And so I won 2 first places that day. And that was the day that I realized, I was like, you know what? I have something here. Like, if I can stick to this, I can be good. And so I just started hitting it hard. And I got hooked up with this guy in Virginia Beach. His name is Jack Dark. And he really helped me out at that time. And he competed on the NASCA circuit. But he helped me understand like the point fighting game, because I didn't really understand it, because it is a game. Like that's what I told you. It's a game. Yeah. It's a chess game. You got to understand the game. You can't just go in there and fight. You got to understand the concept. And he helped me understand like a back fist reverse punch and using hook kicks and everything. So he had a little seminar and I went to it. And after that, I started to win a lot, because I just came home and practiced what he taught me. And I went to I ended up going to, there was this little karate circuit in Virginia. It was called the All-Star League. And this was where apparently a bunch of these NBL promoters and stuff were. And I got hooked up with this lady out of Lynchburg named Brandy Webb. And she had a little karate team at that time. And so I was about 16, got hooked up with her. And she taught me how to throw like a sport karate sidekick. Because like, our sidekicks were like traditional chamber, lock it out. So she taught me how to throw a sport karate sidekick. And then the first NBL tournament I ever went to was Doug Armstrong. And I have to give a lot of credit to him, because he saw me at one of those all-star tournaments, and he tells the story. He said, I said, Ewell. I said, yes, sir. He goes, I'm Doug. And I said, oh, that's yes, sir. Nice to meet you. And he goes, why aren't you in the NBL? And I looked at him. I said, what's the NBL? Because I didn't know what it was. And he told me what the NBL was. And he said, do you want to be a world champion? I said, yeah, I want to be a world champion. And after I heard that word, world champion, and that was my life, man. After that, I started hitting all these NBLs. Doug Armstrong's was actually the first NBL tournament I ever went to in Hickory, North Carolina in 2010. And then I ended up, I competed on the circuit a little bit, but I wasn't that good. That was the thing. I was a good fighter. I had good technique, but I still wasn't good. Like my forms, I had all the talent. When I say talent, like I would go on YouTube and I would watch videos of John Valero, Jimmy Pham, Daniel Sterling, Matt Emick, all these guys. And I would teach myself how to like 540. And I taught everything I learned, man. I taught myself. And my mom got me a DVD from Century. And I can't think of the guy's name. He was like the coach for Team Pro Rank. It was an NASCA circuit. He was an excellent form guy, great hands. but like I would play the video and I learned how to butterfly twist, from all that. I'm like just self-taught. But the thing was I didn't know how to train forms,
Yeah.
and my forms were just sloppy and trashy. And so I set a goal to go to Super Grands, and I had to work really hard, and I got a seed. And actually my best seed was in fighting. Like I said, even though I didn't really understand some of the things, I was already a good fighter because I had a great foundation. And I went there, and I was still on Brandy's team in 2011, and it was Super Grands, Sacramento, California. That's one of my most favorite Super Grands. I mean, of course, it's my first, but there's just so many people there. Like there was just so many, and I ended up getting like 8th and 7th and a 5th place. Right. And but before that Super Grands, I had hooked up with this guy out of Martinsville, Virginia, Ron Ferguson. And he's a legend, man, because he had Team FX. He had Lauren Ferguson, Ben Ferguson, Bryce Ferguson, Roy. These were people. I mean, he's been in the NBL since the 90s. He's a multi-time world champion. And he told me something. He said, Ewell, he said, I don't know if you'll get it this year. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. He said, you got it. You just got to have the know-how. And like I said, Brandy was extremely good to me. And so after that year in 2011, 2012, I went to her and talked to her, and she wasn't really competing as much anymore. So I went to Mr. Ferguson's team, and, he had actually just lost his son, Roy. Roy was killed. And so I credit Ron for taking me under his wing at that time. And I was with Ron for about 2 months, and he really, man, the knowledge he has, he's like, I always say, like, if you want somebody coaching you to fight, you want Ron Ferguson coaching you, because if he's in your corner, it's like him holding an Xbox controller. And if you do what he tells you to do, it works. When it doesn't work, it's because you did what you wanted to do. So like, trust him. And he taught me the concept of the psychic chamber. Everything comes from a psychic. You can throw a hook, you can throw a round, you can throw a side, you can throw an axe, but it all comes from a sidekick. And he said, Joe Louis was the guy who kind of came up with that. But he taught me that. And then there was this guy out of Lynchburg, Virginia. This is the guy who really changed my life. He's still my coach today. I never was on another team after that. Was Edwin Alejandro. And Edwin's a G, man. He is a gangster, and he's been around forever. And so I went to a training with him on a Saturday. He invited me up there to work out with him, and he was really the first guy that could teach me, and I could comprehend what he was saying. Like I said earlier, being a good instructor is you have to learn how to teach everybody. You have to teach them everybody's different. But the way he taught me and explained things to me, I could actually comprehend it and understand it. And so I ended up calling Mr. Ferguson. I talked to him, and he said, well, I'm not really competing at this time. He's like, honestly, I think it would just be best if he offers you a spot on his team to go with him. And Edwin offered me a spot. And I started to win. That was the reason I knew he was the right guy, was I started to win. And I won Jeff Doss's Ironman challenge that year. And after that, I just started to win. It was a big struggle, but Edwin has been like, how you say you got a karate father, but then you have like your karate brother. And Edwin's been my brother. That guy has just, no matter what it is, competition, life, business, relationship, just down. Like I can call him, he'll answer. Him and his wife, Audrey, they're ride or die, man. I'll take a bullet for them. If they call me and told me to go play the lotto numbers, I'm going to play them because they know something I don't know, But Edwin told me something in 2012. He said, Ewell, he said, sometimes it takes people a long time to win. He said, but the only way you don't win is if you quit. And like I said, I really wasn't that good up till that time, till I got with the right person. But what's crazy is, I noticed there was this pattern in the NBL. In a lot of leagues, it takes a long time to get to stage, man. There's a lot of politics, right? We just call it
Yeah.
what it is. And so in 2011, I got an 8th, 7th, and 5th place. And I knew I knew I needed a gimmick to get people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You see where I'm coming, right? It's like pro wrestling, right?
Yep. That's what I was going to get to. It's like
Yeah.
you got to come up with the right gimmick for
Yeah.
like, I mean, honestly, I'm not planning on going to WWE or like other promotion, but if I get that one shot, I mean, that's fine with me. But I can relate that you have to have the right gimmick to get yourself over. So
Right.
yeah.
And I knew I needed a gimmick. And I kind of knew that at the end of 2011. So I was into the Ninja Turtles. So I bought this Ninja Turtle shell backpack, man. And I just started carrying it everywhere I went. And I started wearing Ninja Turtle everything. I mean, pajamas, Ninja Turtle wallet. Like if you saw Ewell, it was Ninja Turtles. And what's crazy is I knew it worked because when I went to Niagara Falls in 2012 for a SMAC, Ron and Diane Kane's tournament, Colby Northcutt said something to me because I wore this Ninja Turtle onesie, right?
Yeah.
And so she said something to me. She goes, "You were the guy at Super Grands and all the Ninja Turtle stuff." And I was like, "Yeah." And like the Northcutts were superstars, man. They were like first grade class. And, I love them to death, man. And I mean, like, I will say I didn't like them for a little bit, but it is what it is, man. They're good people, They, when you're a young man, you act a fool, you wear Ninja Turtle stuff. But the thing was, it worked. And like when she said that, I remember this too. And what's crazy is Raymond Daniels was there in 2011 at Super Grands. And then he was at another tournament. And he's like, "Hey, man, you're the turtle guy." And so I was like, dude, it worked. Like I knew I had this gimmick. And so people started remembering me as the turtle guy. And then I grew out this big faux hawk. It was like 10 inches long. And I just knew that if I could market myself, if I could get the gimmick for people to recognize me and know who I was, because I also have a weird name, Ewell, and that's where I came out with that concept of it's cool to be Ewell. It's cool to be Ewell, and started wearing those shirts. And yeah, man. So like I tell people, what's crazy is like I didn't even really place in 2011. 2012, I made it to stage. 2013, I made it to stage twice. 2014, I made it to stage 3 times. And then 2015, I won. And so like I tell people, but like at that time in that phase of my life, man, I never thought I would win. It was taking so long. But now that I look back at it, I was like, dude, that was actually some really fast success, compared to like when you look at some people, man, they had been there 5 years before they ever got to stage. And like I'd only actually been in the NBL for really a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got into competition. That was like my takeaway of it, man.
Man, that's I can write a book on that. Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are fun. I mean, I enjoy competing, even though I did compete like a lot of times, but I just like want to see how it is, but I wasn't planning on being like big on it. But
yeah.
But I always wanted to like do tricking and all that, like backflip and stuff. It's like when I actually got my weight down, and I was like you try to teach yourself to do tricking. I was like watching a lot of Ray Park with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And who I got to meet, of course. Yeah. That was.
Listen, you were one of the guys on our radar. So that's the thing. It's like we had guys, and like don't ever, man, because you were good. And the thing was, you were creative. You were different, right?
Yeah.
And so like we studied everybody we competed with, man. We studied them to the T. And so like you were one of them, man. I remember us going, dude, we're going to SMAC. TJ's going to be there. Hey, we're going to what's it called? Pittsburgh for Kumite. TJ's going to be there, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, dude, man, you were good because you were one of the people on our radar. If we weren't studying you, dude, we didn't worry about you.
Yeah.
So like, like that's why I tell people, if people are thinking about you in your sleep, if you're thinking about them, they're good. You're trying to figure out what you got to do to beat that person. You were just creative, man. Very creative. Because we're like, how do you come up with this stuff? We're trying to watch videos. Who's he watching? Who's he watching?
But I'm just like having fun with it. I wasn't there to win. Yeah. But, I was lucky enough to get trophies from Kumite Classic and as well as Smack.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just that one thing. As long as I get a trophy, I'm set. I'm good with that. Yeah. Hey. All right. Do you do any other activities outside of martial arts? Like, what would be your hobby?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh man. I still train a lot. A lot of my training's more, I don't do a lot of sport karate anymore, but I do a lot of kickboxing and wrestling and BJJ, grappling and stuff. But like hobbies outside of it, I'm married now and I'm super blessed, man. I have an awesome wife. And we have an awesome bulldog who thinks he's human. Yeah. So Hank is awesome. And so, dude, at one time there was this point where like everything karate was like my whole entire life, every day, and you're chasing that dream of being a world champion and competition with your life and stuff. But like my hobby now is really honestly just spending time with my family. And that's what's really important to me. We love to travel. So that's one of our things. And that was a great thing about competing was like, man, I've seen all over the country and some awesome places in the world because of competition.
Yeah.
In high school, I did karate and I was super obsessed with it, but I was actually a really good bowler, believe it or not. Like I was exceptionally good. And I didn't tell people that I was good. And my wife will tell you when I first met her family and everything, we went bowling, dude. And I just, I never tell people. And man, I just killed them, destroyed them. That was a great first impression on the parents, hurting their feelings,
Yeah.
But now I will tell you, I'm big into running. I'm really big into running, man. I did my first half marathon in November. And this year I will be completing my first full marathon. So I said it, man. Now I got to do it. So yeah, man. I do love the thing I love about martial arts is just feeling fit and being the best that I can be, And that's probably really, man. Like, still, even a lot of my hobbies are around something that's related to martial arts, like taking care of yourself, being healthy. The only hobby I can honestly say that's probably not good is I love to eat, man. Food's awesome.
Yeah.
I like good food. So yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that later. So definitely honestly that'd be a guilty pleasure. So all right, so keep that in your back pocket. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so before we get to our hidden dojo segment, here's the one last question. What quote would you best say that best describes your journey?
Man, you know what? I would say I have a couple, but one of the biggest things that I have lived by, I'm not a perfect person, never will be. I've made some mistakes, but this quote kept me out of a lot of trouble, was something Chuck Norris actually said. He said, the choices you make today affect the rest of your life. And you know what? I'll be honest with you and say, like, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke. And when I competed, I didn't do any of that. Because I just, for me personally, there was just integrity behind it. And I'm not condemning anybody else who drinks or smokes or anything like that. If you do drugs, drugs are bad. Don't do drugs, But for me, that was something, and I credit that to Chuck Norris because he, in his show, Walker Texas Ranger, kicked drugs out of America, kind of like the Kickstart program, like that was the point of it. And so I always live by, the choices that I make today affect the rest of my life. And then I always, like I look back to what our team motto was, you know what, dude, you don't work like we work. So whatever I'm doing, man, like I'm gonna outwork you, dude. I'm gonna take your soul. Like that's my job, man. I'm gonna take your soul. So if you're staying up 48 hours, I'm staying up 50 hours. Like I don't care. You know, even if my performance isn't great, like that's okay. But I still beat you by 2 hours. Like I'm taking that soul. So and never give up, man. Like you're always gonna have bad days, but did you really have a bad day or a bad moment? And so just and the last thing I would say too is one thing I try to start my day with every single day to change my life is gratitude. You know, thank you for waking me up today, right? Because like for me, I believe in God, so I just say, you know, God, thank you for waking me up today. Thank you for the roof over my head. Thank you, God, for the ability to talk, see, hear, like all these things we take for granted, you know. So, but the choices you make today affect the rest of your life. And if you live by that, I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to try to make better choices.
Yeah. I can relate to Walker Texas Ranger being a inspiration. Well, it's a good thing we got Pluto TV. I usually watch Walker Texas Ranger there, or even my DVDs.
Yes, yeah. Have every season.
Yeah, you know, that's the great thing about Walker Texas Ranger. Because of Chuck Norris, I end up meeting celebrities that was on this show. At least gets. Yeah, that was. Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our Hidden Dojo segment. So this is the fun part of the whole podcast. All right. So I'm going to ask you 7 questions here. So it's going to be at the best of your ability. All right. So this, like I said, this is going to be the fun part. So let's have fun, ladies and gentlemen. All right. The first question is the best piece of advice you ever gotten and who said it?
The best piece of advice that I've ever got. Man, I'm gonna tell you what, that's tough because I've been surrounded by so many good people. I would have to say back to what Edwin said. It's you know, I've seen people get second for 10 years, but it's always, you know, as long as you stay, you're gonna win. You'll get it. Just don't quit. And I've actually, the thing is, I've applied that like to everything I do in my life. I'm not the most talented, dude. I was not the most talented competitor, man. I just happened to be the guy that would stay for 2 hours after training karate and practice that one thing over and over and over. So I think the best piece of advice I've ever got is probably that, I would say. And that would come from Mr. Edwin Alejandro.
Here's the next one. Usually the second question people don't get, the worst advice you ever gotten.
I noticed you said you didn't say to name them. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. You know, you know what? I've had a lot of bad advice. But I will say, I remember I had somebody years ago. It was 20. I remember, dude. Like sometimes I have like photographic memory, but it was 2013. I had torn my knee, and I was at Kumite Classic. I'm not going to name the person, but they gave me this piece of advice, man. And I had just opened my karate school had been open right about a year, and they told me, they said, Ewell, as long as you teach good karate, the rest will follow. You will be fine. Just teach good karate. Everything else will work out. And you know, man, I took that to heart. Like I took, because at the end, that person, I still love him to death, but that probably wasn't the best piece of advice because, and I really want to say this, like I looked up to them. Like, you know, they were a hero. You know, I want to have a karate school like them. They were successful. And at that time, that's what I thought success was. So I remember they told me just to teach good karate and that, you know, if I just did that, then the rest would come. But you had to work really hard and it takes a period of time. And honestly, man, that was the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten. Like out of all of, because it doesn't take just good karate to run a martial arts school. Like that idea of good karate is what gave me that idea of, man, I got to have all this stuff for these kids to learn to get their yellow belt, because good karate. But good karate didn't teach me how to run a business. You know what? And good karate is not what taught, like that concept living by that didn't teach me how to stand up to bully customers, because we're not talking just physical, but dude, sometimes you got to fire a customer, man. Sometimes they're bad people and they just don't need to be in your business, and they're causing contentions, and you walk in your karate school and you're like, oh, that person's here because they're just a negative Nancy, or like a cancer. And the good karate didn't like that didn't teach me how to call people and say, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, you're behind 3 months. You need to pay your bills, because here I am over there. I didn't know to do that kind of stuff, or I was kind of scared to do that. But as long as I teach good karate, man. And I live by, honestly, dude, I live by that quote for 5.5 years of running my business, man. And then God opened a door for me to get a business mentor. And this guy told me, he said, you know what? He's like, and a guy out of Harrisonburg, I can name him, Brian Mays, told me, he said, if you ever go home, Ewell, and you're standing in the shower and there's a problem at karate because of a bad customer, you need to fire the customer. And I'd never been told anything like that. I thought you had to put up with all this, and you had to put up with people not paying you, and you had to, So I know it's weird when you say that, but I would have to say, dude, like that was the worst piece of advice I ever got in my life, was just teach good karate. If it had been, hey man, if you teach good karate and then you also learn how to do this, and this, you'll be successful. It wasn't that, it was just, and like for me, man, I was a young man. I believed in that person. And I kind of idolized them. I wanted to be like them. And so I was like, man, I got to go home. I got to teach good karate. Every class, dude, got to be good karate, because you take that to heart. So I do tell people, like, think about things when you give advice. And so if I give advice, what I try to do is I try to give advice, but I want to explain it because I want you to understand it,
Yeah.
So that's what, man, I've been had a lot of bad advice on just like stupid stuff and everything, but that one is the one that impacted my whole life.
Yeah. All right. Remember I said about keeping that guilty pleasure in your back pocket? Yeah. So is that the way you reward yourself?
I love food, man, but after a tournament or something like that I'd worked for a long time, nice big pizza, man, pepperoni pizza or something like that. But I will tell you this, man, I've worked really hard in the last few years to like not make my reward food, because I love food. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah, but I will say, man, I would say that if there's a guilty pleasure, yeah, food's it, man. Because I mean, there's just so much good food out there, and like, I don't know, man. Apparently, I didn't know that for a while.
Yeah, that'd be a good guilty pleasure. Either it's food or there's a movie out, you go see it. I mean, yeah, that's guilty pleasure doesn't always have to be food, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah,
it's the rule. It's the rule.
All right. What famous movie would you want to be in?
Well, if I had to pick, it would have to be, and that's movie. So I would say TV show. I'd Walker, Texas Ranger, man. Like, I would have to say that. And then if it was a movie, The Best of the Best.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. If you want to train for a karate tournament, watch The Best of the Best, man. Yeah, those two. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think of that. I pretty much got that because of that movie. I pretty much got that whole James Earl Jones voice, pretty much.
Yes.
And because I have to talk like Mufasa, yeah, that'd be. Yeah, that was a good movie,
It was.
Yeah, I think I watched that a lot of times. Well, of course, good thing for Netflix or I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. We actually just watched it a few months ago. Matter of fact, I told my wife, I said, "You need to watch this." What? Because my wife's not really involved in martial arts like I am.
Yeah.
I got to educate you on a couple things. This is a rule. Like our kids are gonna have to watch this. It's a rule.
No women, no alcohol, no drugs.
That's right. He said, "If you want to be the best, you can't beep." Yeah,
Yeah.
I love him.
Uh, all right. Secret talent.
Well, um, I don't know if it's a talent, but I am actually a preacher.
Yep.
So yeah, man, I believe that God is awesome and He blesses us with many things, but not just as a preacher, but I personally believe as like an instructor, but more as a coach, man. Like whether it's through martial arts, I believe in just encouraging people, man. Whatever they're doing, trying to get a new job, trying to quit smoking, trying to lose some weight, whatever it is, it's just I've been blessed to be a person that can believe in people, and I think that they can comprehend it. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's it. And I used to be a plumber, so there you go, man. Who you gonna call? It's cool to be Ewell, 1-800 plumbing. Not
Uh,
anymore.
oh boy. Dream celebrity encounter.
Chuck Norris, no doubt.
Mm,
Chuck Norris, and I'd love to meet David Goggins.
mm,
Yeah, stay hard, bro. Who's gonna carry the log? Who's gonna carry the log?
yeah. Oh, definitely. I got a lot of celebrity encounters. I mean, of course, I've been to a lot of Comic Con, so really, whatever celebrity I didn't get, I'll get them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Up.
Yeah. I think I got enough celebrities for Hollywood.
I think so.
All right. 10 years from now.
Ooh, well, 10 years from now, man. There's a lot of things that I'm working on right now. So I hope that in 10 years that I'm a father. I'd love to be a father. That'd be cool.
Mhm.
And I want to be able to give back to people that were in my position at 18, 19 years old. So that's something that I'm working on right now, really hard, trying to make things happen and be able to give people that are, even in their late 20s and 30s and 40s, a career with martial arts, not just a job. Because, you make ends meet on your job, but a career you can afford to live off of. And that's it, man. People, like I tell people, like my career in martial arts, when I first started, man, I could not live off of it. So I worked 2 jobs and 3 jobs. And so 10 years from now, I would like to see myself as, man, 50, 60 martial arts schools, dude. And on top of that, like just think about the lives she can impact. But I'm not just talking about the impact of the kids within the school, but being able to impact those people like me that at 19 or 20, like I had to go figure out how to make this thing work and be able to say, hey, man, you don't have to go figure it out. Come here. Let's do this. This is what you need to do. And you'll be successful. And guess what? You can feed your family. That's, that's the hard thing with martial arts. Sometimes it's hard to feed your family with it,
Yeah.
So that's what I would love, man. And I would love to be able to take care of people, help the people that had my back and bless me. I don't know, man. A lot of it's just in God's hands, but that's kind of the vision that I have. I believe, dude, and I always say this because I believe it. I believe I'm going to be a billionaire one day. So like, I don't love money, but it takes money to feed people. It's just the truth. Bible says that money answereth all things. So it does. You got money to feed the poor, but you got to work. got to work to get it. So I always say I'm gonna shoot for it, because if I miss, maybe I land on 100 million. Like
Yep.
just being able to help people like that and teach them to be successful. And that's it, dude. I read a lot of books, and that's like, if you don't envision it and believe it, it's not going to happen. That's just it, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to kind of add a quote to that, I would say it's better to humble yourself than be praised, than to praise yourself and then be humbled.
Yes. That's good. That's good. We need to get that on t-shirts.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. So before we kind of close out, is there any last minute words you'd like to say to our listeners out there?
You know what? If there's something you want to do and you believe in it, go do it. Like, I started my karate school in the hood. And we used to have shootings in the parking lot, and, I just worked hard, and I had to work several jobs and run that place at night. And then I was able to get my own place out of the hood. And then I was there for several years. So you can do it. You just got to work hard, and you are who you hang out with. I only hang out with winners, man. That's it. That's my rule. I only hang out with winners. And people are like, what do you mean by winners? People that are working towards a goal, trying to be the best version of themselves. People that want to be better. That's what a winner is. Constantly driving for it. Doesn't mean you're going to be happy all the time. Life's not a bowl of cherries, right? But don't quit. And if you believe in it, then you believe in it. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if your mom and dad don't believe in it. It doesn't matter if your sister doesn't believe in it. It doesn't matter if your wife or husband doesn't believe in it. Like, if you believe in it, you believe it'll work. It takes you to make it work. That's it, man.
Thank you. Oh man, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful episode, Ewell. So thank you very much for joining me at the Kickpod podcast. So hope everything goes well for you. And of course, I'm looking for those 50 schools, or at least how many schools you're going to get. But I might come and visit one of these days.
Yes.
Yeah. Coming with my old black jacket.
Come in, man. Come in. You got the gimmick, so you can come in and teach us those wrestling moves.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So for those who are just tuning into my previous episodes on the BICBPRadio.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And I'll see you next time for another episode here at the Kick Pod. And this is your host, TJ Williams, bowing you out.